Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Rosh Hashana Daf Yud Tes contains two primary sigas. The first is the conclusion of the discussion as to whether or not Megillas Tainis is still in force or if it's been canceled. And next, the Gemara will go into a discussion about the months of Elul and Adar, particularly if there's two Adars. Can we assume that they are usually 30 days long or 29 days long, or do they vary? And also related to that is, can you keep the mitzvahs of Purim in Adar Rishon if there are two Adars? So let's begin. The Gemara has been in the middle of a discussion about Megillas Tainis, which is a scroll written by Tanaim with a list of quasi Yomim Tovim on which it is forbidden to fast and forbidden to say Hespedim. The Gemara wants to know if that list is still in force after the Beis HaMikdash has been destroyed, or those Yomim Tovim only observed while the Beis HaMikdash was around, so we had a certain level of simcha, but now they are gone, just like the 4 fast days used to be a Yom Tov in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, and now they are considered to be not Yomim Tovim anymore. So Gemara is bringing two proofs here on the subject. The Gemara has already brought one, and the Gemara is in the middle of answering it. The Gemara has already said that there was a day that they made into a Yom Tov on Megillas Tainis, which was the 3rd of the month of Tishrei. And the Gemara wants to know, why did you add days on if you already canceled Megillas Tainis? Why are we adding things to it? So Gemara says that was talking about during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when it wasn't canceled yet. So really could be that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Megillas Tainis was canceled. But here, when we added another day, it was while the Beis HaMikdash was still standing. The Gemara says if the Beis HaMikdash was still standing, the Gemara asks now, wouldn't make sense to make the 3rd of Tishrei into another Yom Tov, because it already is a Yom Tov. It's the Yom Tov of Tzom Gedalia. Tzom Gedalia is not a Yom Tov now, but it was while the Beis HaMikdash was still up. Well, what would be the point in adding another Yom Tov onto an already existing one? Either way, you can't fast, and you can't say Hespedim on that day anyway. The Gemara says the significance is to make it into a day that not only do you not fast and say Hespedim on that day, but also the day preceding and the day following that day. Now, if it would just be Tzom Gedalia, you wouldn't have that. But by making to another Yom Tov, we made that the day before and the day after, you cannot fast and say Hespedim. And the Gemara quotes part of Megillas Tainis which says this: these days, these quasi Yom Tovim midrabanan, you do not say a hesped or fast on those days, and on the preceding day, and on the following day. So Gemara says, but the 3rd of the month of Tishrei, what are you worried about? You're worried about the day before it. The day before it is the day after Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. It's also the day after Rosh Hashana. So the day following Rosh Chodesh Tishrei and Rosh Hashana, you wouldn't fast and do a Hespedim anyway. It's the day after another Yom Tov. Someone says, no. Only a Yom Tov which is Dirabanan do we not fast and say Hespedim on the day before and after. Something which is Daraisa, like Rosh Chodesh or Rosh Hashana, that concept does not exist. So the fact that the 1st of Tishrei is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei does not mean that you cannot say Hespedim or fast on the 2nd of the month of Tishrei. That day became usher to fast only because the 3rd day was a special Yom Tov, the Yom Tov that we're adding in this discussion. Someone says, well, what do you mean? It's a Yom Tov anyway. It's a Yom Tov of Tzom Gedalia, which was a Yom Tov in the days of the Beis HaMikdash. And don't tell me that Tzom Gedalia is not enough to make it before or after, to make it forbidden to fast before or after, because Tzom Gedalia is a Yom Tov that's written in the Navi. And the difference is as follows. A D'oraisa, you already said, a D'oraisa, you don't make the day before and after. A D'rabanan, you do. Well, Tzom Gedalia is in the Navi, so that should be called a D'oraisa. Tzom Gedalia is only in the Navi, it's not a D'oraisa, and therefore it should not be called a D'oraisa, and it should only be D'rabanan, and therefore the day preceding it should be asked to fast anyway. What does it help? By adding another Yom Tov on top of it. So Gemara says, no, Tzom Gedalia doesn't count as a mitzvah d'rabanan that requires the day before and after to be usher to fast in order to strengthen it. It counts as a daraisa. It's written in the Navi. So, therefore, the rules come out as follows. A Yom Tov daraisa is only usher to fast on the Yom Tov itself. A Yom Tov that's in Divrei Kabbalah, like Tzom Gedalia, would only be usher to fast on the Yom Tov itself. Therefore, the 2nd day of the month of Tishrei should be permitted to fast. Came along and we added another Yom Tov on it, which was Yom Tov D'Rabbanan. We added that to the 3rd day of Tishrei. That way the 2nd day of Tishrei, which immediately precedes it, became also to fast as well. And really, it makes perfect sense to say that all this was happening during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, which leaves us again without any proof as to what would be the halacha after the Beis HaMikdash has been destroyed. Do we count the Yom Tovim of Megillas Tainus as Yom Tovim or not? So Gemara brings another proof, which is a very similar structure. This is another Yom Tov that was added to the list. And the Gemara is going to have the same question: why would you add a Yom Tov to the list if Megillas Tainus is not around anymore? But the Gemara is going to prove that this time you can't tell me it's talking about before the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. It has to be after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and that's because some of the people that are in it were not around while the Beis HaMikdash was still up. So what's the story here? So Gemara quotes from Megillas Tainus, 28th day of the month of, Rashi says, Adar, they made a Yom Tov. The reason for that was because they got the Romans to take off a decree against them. The story was that they had been decreed by, that says Malchus, doesn't say which one. They had been decreed not to learn Torah, not to do Bris Milah, and that they have to be Mechal Shabbos. They wanted to take that decree off, so they sent Yehuda ben Shemua and his Chaverim to, it sounds like Rome, to go and to ask advice from a matronisa, from a woman that all the leaders of Rome went to, and they asked her, what should we do about this? And they said, go out and make a protest, make a rally in the street at night. So they went at the street at night, and they protested, and they said, by Shemayim, aren't we brothers? We're both descended from Yaakov, we're both descended from the same father, we're both descended from the same mother. Why are you picking on us? Why are you Romans making decrees against us? And this was an effective strategy, and they took the decree off, and they made the 28th day of Adar into a Yom Tov, a Megillas Tainus, that you cannot fast, and you cannot say Hispedim on it. So again, the Gemara asks, so why would you add, if the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed already, you can't, and Megillas Tainus is cancelled, why would you add to it? So Gemara says, so how do you know that this is after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed? The Gemara says, because we have Yehuda ben Shemua in it. Yehuda ben Shemua was a Talmud of Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir was already after the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, and therefore there was no Beis HaMikdash around at the time of this story. Now, how do you know that Yehuda ben Shemua was a Talmud of Rabbi Meir? So Gemara quotes a Mishnah, which is a machlokas, about a glass kli that has a hole patched up with metal. The machlokas is whether that counts as a glass kli or it counts as a metal kli. Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemua quotes Rabbi Meir, says that it counts as a metal kli because the only thing that's keeping it together, is keeping it functional, is a piece of metal, and therefore it has the halachas of tumah as a metal kli, which is tumah d'oraisa. The Chachamim say no, it counts as a glass kli. The vast majority of the kli is glass, and therefore it have the halachas of tumah d'rabanan of glass. So anyway, the point is that we see from this that Megillas Tainus must still be in force even after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and all those days that are mentioned there, you cannot fast and you cannot say Tzveidim on those days. So the Gemara concludes its discussion by saying it's actually Mechakos Tanaim, whether it was cancelled or not. And the Gemara quotes an explicit brisa. It says Mechakos between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi in our days when the Beis HaMikdash has been destroyed. Are you allowed to say Tzveidim on the days in Megillas Tainus or not? What's the halacha? So Gemara quotes contradictory halachas. Gemara says the halacha is that it was not canceled, and the halacha is that it is canceled. Gemara says, how does that make sense? Gemara says Chanukah and Purim were not canceled. All the other days were canceled. You can't say Hispedim or fast on Chanukah and Purim, but you can do that on the other days. Okay, now the Gemara moves on and refers back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had mentioned all the months in which we have to send messengers, so to make sure that the people outside Eretz Yisrael know what day was Rosh Chodesh, and therefore what day significant events in that month will be, but didn't mention it did mention Elul, so you know when Rosh Hashanah is, and it mentioned the Tishrei, so that you know when Sukkot will be. So Gemara says, why do you need to do that? If you know when Elul started, Elul is always 29 days. Elul is never 30 days. We said that Rav Chenana Bar Kahana said, since the days of Ezra, there's never been an Elul that was 30 days long. So if you know when the Rosh Chodesh Elul was, you'll know when Rosh Chodesh Tishrei was, and you're able to conclude when all the Yom Tovim in a Tishrei will be. So why do you need to send messengers? So the verse says no. As we shall see in the next daf, there were possible reasons that they would make Elul into a 30-day month, and that would be to separate Yom Tov from Shabbos. We don't want a 3-day Yom Tov. It'll cause people who died to rot. They won't be able to get kavura properly. It'll cause vegetables to go off. So there were times when we would do that. Now, it didn't actually happen, but theoretically it could happen. And if it would happen, then they would send those messengers out. Make sure that everybody knows that this year Elul is a 30-day month. Now, the Gemara asks, but if you do that, then the people will find out that they kept Rosh Hashanah the wrong day, because they'll only find out later that they kept Rosh Hashanah wrong. The Gemara says, yes, they'll keep Rosh Hashanah wrong. That's okay. It's all right if they kept Rosh Hashanah in the wrong day, as long as they make sure that they kept the other Yom Tovim in the right day. So we'll send those messengers anyway. Okay, now, next is the Gemara notices that on the list we had said you send out messengers in Adar so that people know when Purim is. The Gemara says, but you only mentioned Adar Aleph. You didn't mention Adar Beis. If there's two Adars, you should send messengers in Adar Beis also. Once you make a second month of Adar, the Yom Tov of Purim will be in the second month of Adar. You have to send messengers again. So Gemara says this is actually a machlokas tanaim whether or not you do that. There's a brisa that says that Rebbe says that you send out messengers to tell everybody when Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni was, and there's another Tana that disagrees. The other one says no, you only send for Adar Rishon and for Adar Sheni. So the Gemara says okay, so our Mishnah holds like that. Tana doesn't go like Rebbe. Question is, what is the machlokas between the two? So the Gemara first wants to say the machlokas would seem to be, do you have to keep Purim again in Adar Sheni? If you kept Purim and all the other mitzvahs in Adar Rishon, and then they add another month, so the month that's actually added is Adar Rishon. We consider the Adar Sheni to be the regular Adar, and we say that the extra month that happened was Adar Rishon. So the machlokas is, were you yotze the Purim and all those mitzvahs in Adar Rishon, or you have to do them again in Adar Sheni? According to Rebbe, you got to do them again, and therefore you have to send messengers out. According to the other Tana, you don't have to do them again, and you don't have to send messengers out. So it's not necessarily is that the machlokas between them. Could be everybody agrees you have to send messengers out again. The only question is, when they add an extra month of Adar Rishon, when they made Adar Rishon into not the real Adar, is there a question as to how many days long that month is going to be? One opinion says you know exactly how long it's going to be, and the other one says, no, we don't know. So if we don't know, we got to send messengers to tell them how long it was, and when Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni was. So Gemara quotes a machlokas on that subject as to is there a possible variety as to how long Adar Rishon will be. So the Gemara quotes a brisa. The Tanakama says that Adar Rishon, if there is an Adar Sheni, is always 30 days. Or Shimon ben Gamliel says it's always a month. So Gemara says, so there you have it. The Gemara says, what do you mean there I have it? If it's always a month, it means that it's always 29 days. Either way, it's fixed. The only question is, which one is it fixed at, 29 or 30? But either way, I don't have to send messengers, because I know how long it was. The Gemara says, no. When he says that it's a month, he means it's just an extra month. It doesn't have a specific number of days. Could be 29, could be 30. Now, on the topic, the Gemara quotes of Papa. The Gemara quotes of Yeshua ben Levi, who quotes Kahala Kadisha de Yerushalayim, the holy congregation of Yerushalayim, and he says they said as follows: when you have 2 months of Adar, when you're Mekadesh the second month, when you add the month, you also say that they are only 29-day months. It is established that they are 29 days long. They're not going to be 30 days long, either of them. Now, Rav Nachman Chusa says differently. He says that Rav Simai testified in the name of Chag Zechariah and Malachi, 3 Nevi'im, that 2 Adars can go either way. They can be both 30-day months, they can be both 29-day months, or it could be first 30 and then 29. Can't be the other way, but it could be like that. And that was the custom. That's how they kept it always. It could vary. Says the Gemara that Rabbeinu said that if you don't know, those outside Eretz Yisrael who don't know should always assume that the first month is 30, first Adar is 30 days, and the second one is 29 days until they receive a message telling them otherwise. Okay, the Gemara says they sent a message to Mar Okva, and they said that Adar, the last Adar, the one that's right before Nisan, is always 29 days. Okay, if there's 2, then it's the second one. If there's 1, then it's that one. It's always 29 days. That month does not change. So the Gemara says they have a question. The question is that it says that there are 2 months in which the witnesses who see the new moon and want to go testify to Beis Din when the moon is, so they can be Mekadesh the Chodesh. Those witnesses are allowed to go outside the Tchum even on Shabbos, allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. And that's only for the months of Rosh Chodesh Nisan and Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, because it's very important to get that date right as soon as possible so that we know when Yom Tov will be. So Gemara says, but if the Adar before Nisan is always 29 days, what are we being Mechal Shabbos for? There's no question. We know how long that month will be anyway. What's the point? Gemara says, no, the point is to do the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. It's not to establish the month, it's to do the mitzvah to do that. The Beis Din is the clearing Kiddush HaChodesh. That is a very important mitzvah, and you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos in order to allow that mitzvah to occur.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.